Welcome to another lecture in the Johannesburg School of Governance, brought to you by the Democratic Alliance, proudly sponsored by the Presidency of South Africa. Speaker, the political quote of the month undoubtedly belongs to Minister Gwede Mantashe, capacity dololo. Now, I'm not here to debate the minister's intent when he said that, but I can think of no better or more...
Councillor Schay, I honestly don't want a repeat of yesterday.
Speaker,
please.
if you let me finish the sentence.
Please, Councillor Schay, please.
Okay.
Thank you, all of you, Councillor Christians. No. Thank you, everybody. Councillor Schay, please. Assembly.
Okay, but I can think of no better way to describe diagnosis of Johannesburg's current condition. Its infrastructure, its enforcement system, its planning. Capacity dollar law. It isn't a political jab. It's a reality our residents live with every single day. A reality I came home to last night after leaving this chamber, when I got home and there was no water in my suburb. For the umpteenth time, a burst of the chronically failing Rankislachter reservoir forced a shutdown. That is the reality that informs this debate. And yet, here we are debating a new land use scheme like that capacity exists. Let me be clear. The DA does not reject a new land use scheme. We understand the need to modernize our planning framework and to enable sensible densification. But we cannot support this land use scheme in its current form, not until the foundational work is done. Because you cannot plan the future of a city by putting the cart before the horse. You cannot densify before you've secured infrastructure. You cannot expand zoning before you've mapped capacity. You cannot promise growth while ignoring enforcement. Right now, the land use scheme is trying to build the roof before the foundations are poured. It's trying to plan density on top of a system that is already straining under the weight of unmanaged growth, illegal development, and infrastructure neglect. And these aren't just the views of the Democratic Alliance. These are the views of Johannesburg, written in black and white through the public participation reports on this very item. But there is a fundamental difference, Speaker, between reading a report to tick a box and reading it for genuine understanding. If the administration had read the submissions to understand them, and not merely for the purpose of formulating a response, they would have heard one clear, unified message from the city: the time is not right. They would have heard resident after resident, community after community, warning that we lack the foundations for this land use scheme, and that to proceed now is to build a blueprint for collapse. Yeah. We see the reality clearly on the ground. Recently, I submitted a petition calling for a joint audit by Development Planning, City Power and Johannesburg Water into areas fed by the Orchard substation. A substation that trips repeatedly week after week. And why? Because illegal communes and unmanaged land use in places like Sydenham and Orange Grove are overloading infrastructure that was never designed for this kind of density. Because we have densification without enforcement, growth without governance. And it's not just the DA and the residents saying this. A few weeks ago, I sat at a public meeting with the chair of chairs, and he himself was bemoaning the lack of enforcement that led to the first backyard shack he had ever seen in Sandton. Even he can see the problem his own party refuses to solve. And from my petition, the residents themselves were sounding the alarm in their responses, and I quote, "Every 2 or 3 weeks we are left without power. Some properties have as many as 20 people living on them. The strain is destroying our network. Illegal structures need to be demolished and owners held accountable. Orange Grove is reaching the point of no return. Our area is becoming a slum of gangsters." Speakers, this is not DA rhetoric. This is Johannesburg speaking, and it is speaking loudly. Residents are paying a fortune in tax and getting nothing in return. They enjoy outages that last for days, leaving homes vulnerable and their security systems failing. They watch water pressure collapse and roads crumble, not because of unforeseen events, but because of deliberate political choices. The choice to ignore bylaw enforcement. The choice to tolerate illegal land use. The choice to pretend that density can happen without capacity. This is capacity dollar law in practice. And it's why the DA says the scheme cannot proceed without these fundamental changes. First, bulk service contributions need to be ring-fenced. Every cent for the infrastructure upgrades required by densification in that specific area should be spent on that area. Developers must not be allowed to pay into a general pot that disappears into unrelated spending while the pipes beneath their buildings burst from overuse. Second, those bulk service contributions must be calculated dynamically based on the real capacity that exists today and the upgrades planned for tomorrow. That is why we insist the city's digital twin, already under development, must be completed and properly used. It must not be a vanity project. It must be a living map of Johannesburg's infrastructure. Every pipe, every cable, every substation, constantly updated and accessible to planners, engineers, and the decision makers alike. And that leads me to the third, transparency. For the digital twin to function, departments like Joburg Water must be willing to share their knowledge with the rest of the city. Currently, they will not share their pipe layout with the development planning department. It raises serious questions on what's being hidden. Masking critical data at this stage does not protect the city, it cripples it. Speaker, without ring-fence funding, without dynamic bulk service pricing tied to real capacity, and without full interdepartmental transparency, this land use scheme is not a plan, it's a fantasy. It is densification on paper and disaster in reality. Right now, the city is trying to teach chapter 10 when it hasn't even passed chapter 1. It's writing the textbook without checking if the classroom has been built. It's promising high-rise futures without checking whether the pipes can cope. That is the very definition of putting the cart before the horse. We believe in Joburg. We believe the city can grow. We believe it can thrive. But belief alone is not enough. If we believe in Joburg, we must build the foundations first. We must enforce the laws we already have. We must protect the infrastructure we already depend on. And we must plan growth based on reality, not on rhetoric. This is another lecture in the Johannesburg School of Governance, and as I said yesterday, this is the last term. There will be no extended learning program for slow learners. Next term there will be demonstration. Because today, to believe in Johannesburg is to believe in more than just plans on paper. It is to believe in the rule of law that protects our communities. It is to believe in the infrastructure that supports our growth. And it is to demand a government that delivers both. Thank you.